So today is a very special treat because we have the wonderful Barbara Yarde. Welcome, Barbara.
Hello, everyone.
Now, anyone who doesn't know Barbara, she's going to share a little bit about herself, but she is an incredible jeweler. She does lots of different types of things, but a lot of her work includes working with gold. And this is a topic that we always get lots of questions about. I know that I am obsessed with working with gold whenever I can get my hands on it. It's not always possible, is it? Because of costs and things. But when we get commissions or if we're sort of moving our business in a direction where we're adding more bits of gold in, then it's wonderful to learn more about how to work with it. So Barbara's going to be sharing about that tonight, and it's your bench tips. So you get to ask any questions. So you can use the chat to put any questions in there, and we're just kind of here to help and support you guys and talk about jewelry making for about an hour or so, because who doesn't want to do that? So Barbara, just while everyone's coming in, do you want to just introduce yourself a bit and tell us a bit about how what you do and why you might be talking about gold?
Okay. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Barbara Yarde, and I work with the Jess at the Jewellers Academy. I've been a maker now for approximately 20 years. I started off, I mainly work with gemstones, and I really like working with mixed metals, especially gold will normally be my mixed metal, and I work with texture as well, which is really nice. It's mainly one-offs. I very rarely do collections just because I do get bored quite quickly. So I prefer to do one-offs, and as I'm working a lot with gemstones, it will normally be one gemstone. So no two rings will actually look alike. So everything I do is a one-off. So that's me.
Yeah. Yes, and Barbara's one of the mentors and teachers on the diploma. I think are you on all the diplomas? You're definitely on the fine jewelry diploma.
I think I am on all the diplomas.
I think
Yeah,
you might
I'm
be
on
on them all as well.
I think I am on all the diplomas. Yes.
There we go. A hat
So I
trick.
pop up because somebody
Yeah.
said to me the other day, "Are you on you?" Someone came up to me in the show and said, "Are you on YouTube?" I was like, "Oh, I thought,
Oh, in the
no."
shop,
They
just
said, "No." They
randomly.
said,
That's
I
cool.
know
Are
you. Are
YouTube
you on
famous?
television or YouTube?" And they said, "I'm a journalist." I said, "Oh, that's probably YouTube." They're like, "Yeah, that's it."
Yeah. Barbara's got some free tutorials on our YouTube
On
as well.
YouTube,
So
yeah.
definitely go check those out. Great. Okay. I know people are going to have lots of questions. So very exciting. So we're going to get stuck into it. So first question is from Denise. Thank you, Denise, who says, can I ask, when using mixed metals, what solder should you use? So I guess this is if you've got, say, like a silver ring and you're adding some gold, like a gold piece on top, or, whatever it is that you're mixing the metals with. How do we know what solder to use, and what would you recommend?
Okay, so when you're using say you're going to use sterling silver and 9 carat gold, you can either use 9 carat gold solder, or you can use sterling silver solder only with 9 carat gold and sterling silver. If you are using sterling silver and 18 carat gold, you have to use 18 carat gold solder. The only one you can mix your solders with is 9 carat gold, 9 carat gold and sterling silver.
That's interesting. Why do you have to use 18 karat gold solder if you're working with 18 karat? Is that to stop the carat from diluting?
Because remember, 9 carat gold has more copper in. So 9 carat gold is very close to silver. So with the copper content, 18 carat gold is purer. So you need to use the correct solder with it. So always do that. If you're working with 9 carat and sterling silver, you are absolutely fine to use sterling silver or 9 carat solder, whichever you have. But the other metals, use the higher carat metal.
Right. Yeah, that's really helpful actually. And I think usually if it is 9 carat, I've seen most of the tutors use silver solder because it's just cheaper and
It's cheaper. It's nice because if you use 9 carat, it does all kind of blend in nicely. But sterling silver will do exactly the same thing.
All right, brilliant. Thank you for the question, Denise. Tess says she's multitasking and putting the kids to bed. Don't worry, Tess, that's awesome. Elaine says, when I've tried to solder silver and gold together using silver solder, the gold has melted into the silver. Sad face. Any ideas on how to avoid the gold sinking into the silver?
Remember, your heating temperature for gold is going to be slightly higher than silver. When you're heating your piece, you need to heat the whole thing. And I take it if you are soldering gold on, it's going to be a small amount of gold. So you need to heat. Don't hold it onto the gold. So if you're I don't know, say you're going to do a bezel. So you've got your ring, you're going to put a bezel on top. Don't hold the heat on the bezel. Heat the whole piece, because it will automatically, as soon as you heat the whole ring, the bezel will solder as well, because the heat will travel. And I think that's what people do. They think, oh, I'm soldering this little patch here, and they hold the solder on there. You don't. You move it all around. And that's most probably why your piece is melting. You're melting your gold because it's too hot.
All about that heat conduction. And
it is. It's looking at your heat. Don't put your torch too close. Don't take it up too far. Keep it moving all the time, and don't keep it in one place.
And is there something as well, Barbara, about once it's soldered? Because I'm really bad at this. I want to like double check it's soldered.
No.
Keep the torch on for ages, and
once it's soldered, move it away. You'll melt it. Once it's soldered, move your torch away. Yeah, then pickle it,
roulette.
Get your loop out and look at it. If you need to resolder, then do it. Don't hold it on. No. No, Jess.
Do what Barbara says, not what I do. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So hopefully those tips will help with not kind of getting the gold to absorb into the silver.
No.
Yeah, because it's almost like fusing, isn't it, at that stage?
Yeah, and that's where you it's a fine line, and that's where you step on to fusing. So if it's melting, you've just fused your gold to your silver. Yeah, unless you want to do that.
Yeah, different technique.
Different technique if you want to fuse.
Yeah. Liz had a good question. She says, I'm new to gold. I've never used it, in fact, and it's kind of scary. But I know, Liz, you're on the silver diploma, so you're going to be using it very soon, which is exciting. What's the best way to approach starting to work with gold? What would you suggest?
Elements. And again, fusing small elements. So you could fuse little bits of gold to silver, and that means you don't need any solder. You just need to flux your whole piece, flux the gold, flux the silver, and you can just fuse it all together that way. Or you could do things like making tiny silver balls. Just get gold wire, make tiny silver balls, and you could solder those to your pieces of silver. So that's not going to cost you a fortune if you get kind of thin wire, maybe 0.4, 0.5 wire, 9-carat gold wire, bead it up, and you can solder that on. It's kind of little elements to give your work a little lift.
That's a lovely idea, little brand new. Yeah.
It's not going to break the bank.
No, it's a good starting point. And I guess it's building the confidence as well, isn't it?
Exactly. And then you can think, oh, actually, gold, especially 9-carat, isn't too bad. It is slightly harder than sterling silver 9-carat because it's got a higher copper content. But working in 9-carat gold is nice. It has a kind of bronzy kind of look to it, and again, of course, it's slightly cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper than 18-carat, isn't it?
Yes, especially now. I was reading last week that 18-carat gold has gone up 11% this week.
Wow, just in 1 week. It's all the Christmas orders.
Yeah.
We're causing a spike. Yes, and Barbara, could you just explain for anyone who doesn't know, who's listening, what fusing is? Because you mentioned it a little bit as well.
Oh, okay. So fusing is you're not using any solder. It's literally like it's saying you're kind of melting two bits of metal together. So you could have just a sheet, and a lot of people will fuse silver. So if I just talk about silver, you have your sheet, and it's usually people will use their scraps. So you'll put your scraps on. So you've got your sheet of metal that you've got. Flux that sheet completely, give it a really good flux. Make sure your piece is clean, flux it. Just lay your pieces of scrap or whatever metal on top. Heat the whole thing, and you'll start to see it just kind of melting together, and that is fusing. And you can, that's why I was saying it would work well with 9 karat gold, because you're not going to need loads of metal, but you can just make a pair of earrings and just give it that little pop because you've got little elements of gold on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with fusing, I could be wrong, but it's harder to get it wrong because there's not the whole melting issue.
Yes, and if it melts, it's organic.
It's quite good for figuring out where the melting point is, isn't it?
Yes,
Playing with
exactly.
that.
Yes, and it shows how you're holding your torch as well. Are you holding it in one place, or are you moving it about? What's melting quicker, one end or the other? Because remember, every time you move your heat, the end you've just missed has gone cold. So that's why you need to move it about.
Lovely. And we do actually have, Barbara's on loads of YouTube stuff for us. We have a fusing class from Barbara on YouTube, which is free. So if you want to check that out, feel free to have a look at that as well. I'm sure we can pop the link in the chat. It's a silver fusing, but it's the same.
It's same process, whether you're still, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Liz, for the question. Emma says, what are the main differences between working with silver and working with gold?
It depends. So if you're working, silver is quite a nice soft metal. 9 karat gold, it's slightly harder than silver. You do have to keep a needle in it a lot. 18 karat gold is incredibly soft. It's like working, it's just a really nice soft color, and the color is different as well. So it's a really bright yellow, and also 9 karat gold is a kind of a dull bronzy color that's slightly different from working with white gold. So if you're looking at white gold will always be a kind of dull gray color or a kind of a funny off yellow color, and that's why most people will rhodium pallete their gold. Gives it that high shine, but white gold is a slightly different thing to that, really slightly different kind of beast to say.
Yeah, so when you're working with silver, so I think the question was about working with silver and working with gold. It's predominantly the same, isn't it? There are a few differences.
There are a tiny few differences. Like I say, 9 karat gold is harder than sterling silver, and you will feel it. Sometimes you have to anneal 9 karat gold a little bit more. Working with 18 karat yellow gold, it's much, much softer. It's a completely softer material all in all. And your heating temperature for both 9 and 18 is slightly higher than gold.
Yeah, and I know for like stone setting, for example, setting in 9 karat is always a lot more challenging because it's
setting
like,
in that, yes. Setting in 9 karat is slightly harder than setting in 18 karat yellow.
It's all really nice and soft, and silver.
Yes, 18 karat yellow is my favourite. Lovely like and soft, and the colour it is like butter, and the colour is just gorgeous.
Yeah, jewelers always want to work with 18 karat, but it's just the expense, isn't it?
It's an expense, but again, you can put little accents on. You can do things like fusing, beading, all sorts of things like that. Even a little bit of kembu, which is 24 karat gold, and that's even easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of ways that you can incorporate it in without it being a fully 18 karat gold piece. Although,
and
why not?
Such a huge expense, yes.
Absolutely. And just while we're on this topic, I know we had a question before about the tools and can we use the same tools for silver as gold? Perhaps you could talk a bit around that.
Good point. In an ideal world, you'd have two sets of tools. You would have your files for your sterling silver. You'd have your mops for your polishing mops for your sterling silver. You'd have your tools for your gold, and you'd have your polishing mops. Even your pickle would be different. So you'd have you can still have your big pickle pot, but you can get a jam jar, fill it with some pickle, and just have that into the center of your pickle pot. And that could be your 9-carat gold or your 18-carat gold, whichever gold you're using. And that could heat.
In a non-ideal world,
in a non-ideal world, you would have completely separate tools, because I have files for gold and I have files for silver, and I keep my polishing mops completely separate, because the gold will transfer or the silver will transfer, and then you'll have this kind of funny hue on your pieces.
Yeah, but I think when you're starting out, it's okay to kind of use the tools you've got, and then, like you said, as you develop, it is ideal to have a separate set.
It's ideal, and like you say, as you develop, you're gonna automatically buy tools. So you'll buy extra tools, and you'll find out, oh, I've got 3 files. I'll keep one for gold. I'll keep one for silver.
Yeah, a good excuse to buy more tools.
Buy more tools, yes.
Not that we promote that at all. Okay, brilliant. Thank you for the question, Emma. Denise, so you kind of answered this, but there might be some more detail said. What about pickling a mixed metal ring? So I've heard that pickle can discolor metal.
Again, if you are the only person using your pickle, you can just keep a different pickle pot. So if you know you're going to do mainly mixed metal, keep a little jam jar for the mixed metal pickle pot. Keep one for gold, and then have your main one for silver. Then you can put all the little jam jars actually inside the large pickle pot, because that's what I do. I have a small pickle pot for gold, 9-carat 18, and if I know I'm working in 18 today, I'll put that pickle pot inside the big pickle pot, so it automatically gets heated up. So you could keep as many pickle pots as you need and just add them to your pickle jar.
That's really clever. So you have like subdivisions.
You're not, and you don't have to go and buy 3 or 4 pickle pots. Just get a couple of jam jars on them. I just have one saying 18-carat, 9-carat. I do have one that's mixed, actually.
Brilliant. Great tip. I've not seen that before. I like that. Thank you, Denise. Michelle says, what would you use to solder rolled gold?
Rolled gold? Don't know what that is, actually.
Rolled gold. I wonder,
Is that gold filled?
I was wondering, maybe answer gold filled, and I'll double check. I have heard the term rolled gold before. I'm trying to remember what it refers to. Gold in the form of a thin coating applied to a base of metal by rolling. So I think that will be gold filled.
That's gold filled, isn't it?
Yeah, so, another term for it.
I wouldn't use the gold. I would use the gold for it, because it's a very fine color. I think when you gold fill, it's 12-carat gold they use. So I'd use 9-carat gold. The color might not match, but I would use 9-carat gold. But you've just got to, again, be careful that you're not heating it so much you're taking away the gold.
Yeah, you have to be careful with gold filled.
Careful
with quick gold. A quick soldering situation.
Because you could have just a little patch, because it's either copper or brass underneath, and you don't want a brassy patch.
Yeah. So I guess maybe you'd use easy solder as well, as much as possible.
Yes, easy solder as much as possible.
Just to try and get it like
as quickly as possible, because you don't want your heat staying on it if you're new. But this is only if you're using gold fill or rolled gold. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I always learn things on these sessions. So Sarah's asked, can I fuse 9 carat gold to sterling, or must it be to fine silver?
I always use sterling. Fine silver and sterling, you can use this, it's the same thing, but most people will use sterling silver if you're making things like rings and necklaces. Sterling silver is harder. You want something that's going to last because you're going to be charging people a premium. So it's best to use sterling and 9 carat. And if you're doing that, use the sterling silver solder or 9 carat solder.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yasmin's question, she says she's doing the silver diploma right now. That's awesome. Well done, Yasmin. I hope it's going well. Wondering if the techniques we're learning for the silver can be implemented on gold.
Oh, yes. Everything that you've done on silver. When I first started, we only used copper, and then we moved to silver, and then I moved to gold. So everything you learn, it's a technique. You can apply that to any metal you like.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And even like brass and copper.
Yeah.
And
I know people who work in just brass, and they're doing the same sort of techniques I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's lovely is if you don't have, the funds to buy lots of gold and silver, you can still practice in the brass and the copper. There are some differences, like copper feels a bit stickier, and but overall, like 90% of it is the same for all of the metals. And I know even in the advanced diploma, where we're kind of covering really kind of high-end stuff, we encourage them to do their stone setting in copper because they will get it wrong.
Yes.
Definitely will get it wrong a lot of times, and then
exactly
move on to silver and then gold.
Exactly, because I always say to people, if you're making a piece in silver, do your tester in copper. If you're making a piece in gold, do your tester in silver.
Yeah, because it's always better the second time, isn't it? Even if you don't have to make a piece, it's always better the second time. That one thing you forgot, or
exactly. And if those samples come out well, you just keep them for your keep them in a box. I keep my samples in a box, and I can, if they're nice samples, I can show them to customers and say, look, these are the sorts of things I make, whether it's in copper or whether it's in silver. It's just people like to see something, so you've got some good quality samples there.
Yeah, there are some more questions, but I have a quick one while it's on my mind. Have you ever made any like mistakes in gold, Barbara?
Oh my gosh, I made one today. I was making a square bezel and I chopped the end off. So it wasn't actually a square bezel, it was a 3-sided thing. So I just had to chuck it in my scrap pot. It was one of those things that's going really, really well. And for some reason, I just chopped the end off. I chopped one end off, which was correct. Then I just chopped the other end off. And it was one of those moments. And I thought, why did you chop that end off when you need 4 sides and it's 3? So yeah, that went in the scrap pot. It was 4 o'clock. So I just packed up and went home.
Oh, bless you. I was going to say, how do you deal with it? Because I think that's a lot of people, we worry about like punishing ourselves if we get it wrong, because that's a lot of money, isn't it? And it's like,
it is. I just think to myself, you know what, I'll just smelt that down. And it's just sitting in my little pot that I've got for gold, and I think that'll smelt down. But it was going so well, and I thought, oh, now I've just got solder. That was half an hour down the drain, but there you go.
It's useful though, I think, to hear about people's mistakes, because we can often think, oh, someone's been making jewelry for 20 years. Of course, they're going to get everything right. And it's like, sometimes you're just tired, or you've just looked at something for too long, or you just, just whatever. No rhyme or reason. And
it was again, like today, I should have cut 16 inches of chain. I cut 6 centimeters of chain and then wondered why it had all gone wrong. I just thought, Barbara, go outside and have a little chat to the guys across the road.
You needed a break, maybe.
I think I needed a break, because I was looking at it and thinking, that's 16 inches. And then it was 6 centimeters. I thought, that's really tiny. That can't be right.
it reminds me of that quote or that kind of phrase that you hear dotted around, like as adults, we're unsupervised. I feel like as jewelers, we're unsupervised. We're like left with all these like expensive things. No one's proof checking what we're doing, and we're just like one wrong move and it's like, whoops.
Sometimes you do that though, don't you? With metal, you think you've got a nice shiny bit of metal. Let me just cut it. Let me just, and then you know it's going to go wrong, but you just want to do it anyway.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you for being honest and sharing that. I think it's helpful to understand. But yes, absolutely. Everything you're learning on all the diplomas and any course, you know, and just even just your own practice, it's all metal, and it's all going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Where are we? Oh, here we go. Great questions, by the way, guys. Megan says, what solder would be best to begin with when making a simple 9-carat yellow and 9-carat white gold rings?
Yellow, 9-carat hard. If it's just going to be a band, 9-carat hard. If you're going to use white gold, sometimes white gold solder can be a bit funny. It might not match, and you have this little kind of grey seam going down. And if you're going to use your solder, again, hard solder, rhodium plate the gold, because white gold is either a dull, if you notice, it will be a grey colour, or just a kind of off yellow, rhodium plate it, your white gold. Some people will actually take a little bit of the white gold they're using, mill it down to about 2 mil, and they'll fuse it. So you've got your ring here, your solder seam, and they'll put the metal, the 2 mil metal in between, and they will fuse it so it all matches. But that's if you don't want to rhodium plate it or you want it to be a perfect match. But if you're not going to bother with that and you're going to rhodium plate it anyway, you can just use hard solder. I always say if you're soldering a shank, always use hard solder, whatever metal you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are challenges, aren't there, with solder matching, like with all the golds, really, depending on where you get it from. So having like a really clean solder join and doing some really good finishing, kind of polishing
is kind of key, because you don't know, the batch of the gold you buy might have been delivered yesterday, but the solder you buy could have been delivered last year from another supplier. And because when you buy it from the gold merchant, they're not looking to see it matches, they're just pulling 9-carat yellow off the shelf, 9-carat metal off the shelf. They're not checking to see it's matched. That's down to you.
Yeah. And the rhodium plate just gives it this beautiful,
gives it a high shine to it.
Yeah, but it does come off, doesn't it, over the years? It might, a few years, it might come off, so they might need to, the client might need to come back and get it redone, especially if you're looking at like wedding rings, engagement rings. I know sometimes they offer like a free replating service, depending on how much someone's paid. Obviously, they've paid you a lot to make it worthwhile, but things like that are actually, from more like a business perspective, a really great opportunity to reconnect with customers after a couple of years. If you offer some sort of like, I think the piece needs to cost thousands of pounds for this to be worthwhile, but if someone's bought like an engagement ring or something like that from you and it's in gold, it probably will be. And you know, you can say like, we offer a free like repolishing service each year, or a plating service. They won't come every year, but when they do, it's a great opportunity to say, oh, you know, and if there's any other kind of jewelry you guys are looking for, like my books are open. So it's a great kind of way to...
Exactly. It's kind of a nice little bit of maintenance that you do. And then you can see how your piece of jewelry has kind of worn the test of time as well. And it's good marketing as well, because I can guarantee you people have commented on that and things like that. You can see what is working and what is not working.
It's great relationship building, isn't it? Yeah. Wonderful. I'm excited you guys are all going to be making these gold pieces. Louisa says, I've worked a bit with yellow gold, 18 carat, but would like to try white gold. Are there any important differences? Also, can you rhodium plate white gold yourself at home? So
But
differences between yellow and white gold, especially in 18 carat, and also can you rhodium plate yourself at home?
so white gold, 18 carat, is a teeny bit harder than yellow carat gold. And if I'm using 18 carat white gold, I very rarely buy solder because every time I've done that, I've noticed the solder does not match the white gold. And I will buy an extra little bit of white gold, mill it down to as thin as tin foil or thinner, and I will do what I've done before. I will slot it between the solder joint and fuse it. Don't forget to flux.
I was going to
And
say you need lots of flux for that.
flux, flux, and flux again. It doesn't matter. And rhodium plating at home, you can get those plating kits, those big baths that you can get to rhodium plate. I personally don't. I take it to someone in Hatton Garden and they do that because I don't do enough of that for it to be worthwhile. But you can get the massive plating machines, you know, that you can do. I think Cookson's sell them.
Yeah. So is it quite a big investment to do your own plating?
It is. I think it's. I think if you know that's something you're going to do, I know people who plate a lot have bought these machines and they say it's much cheaper than going to somebody because they're working on the gold prices. So when they go up, etc. So they say doing it themselves is quicker, more economical. So you've got to weigh up the cost. Am I going to do this once a year, twice a year, or am I making like 200 pieces a month? It might be worthwhile getting something. But like I say, I don't. I know people who have, but personally, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most jewelers working kind of solo on their own will use the platers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like you said, if you've got a production,
yeah, if you're doing mass production, you're selling wholesale to companies, it might be something to look into. Doing it yourself, you've got more control of the finished piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Hopefully that's helped, Louisa. So essentially it's very similar. The 18 carat yellow gold with 18 carat white gold, other than the solder, and it's slightly harder, you said.
It's teeny bit a bit harder, I found, for white gold. I do find you need to anneal it a little tiny bit more.
Do you find it weird working with white gold because it looks a bit like silver? Whereas I find like working with yellow gold, I'm like, this is very different. Whereas working with white gold, you have to make sure you remember which bits, your bench strap and everything.
Because you can kind of get confused. It is like put the silver to the side. And I make sure I label everything. Even now, some packets I have, I think I've got to label. I have little bits of masking tape on the piece just to make sure.
That's a good idea. As soon as it arrives, label that stuff.
Label it up. I label everything. If I've got gold, especially gold with a bit of masking tape, and I'll just tag it and write it on.
Yeah. And Sarah asked, we've had this question already, Sarah, so we'll just quickly recap. Can I fuse 9 carat gold to sterling, or must it be fine silver? So yes, it can.
Yes, and you can do it on fine silver as well.
Yeah, and she said, I know you can fuse gold to Argentinium silver as well.
Yeah.
Argentinium silver. Yeah, so all of it.
All of it.
You do all of
it. To all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is an interesting question. I don't know if you've done this or not, Barbara. How different is etching gold to etching silver? Have you ever done etching?
I've never done etching. I think I did etching like a million years ago at university once. But I've never done etching again, actually.
Yeah, we used to do it at London Jewellery School, but we only did it for a while because there were so many chemicals involved.
Yes.
Like,
exactly. And I think there were so many chemicals, and I remember burning my hands because it's all acid, and I just thought, no. So
it is beautiful though.
It's a gorgeous look. And I did think to myself, well, I can achieve the same look by engraving.
Yes. Yeah. So
Yes.
sorry, we don't have the answer, Sarah,
So
but
I
it's an interesting
don't know
question.
that one at
Maybe
all. I'm
pop it in
sorry.
maybe pop it in the Facebook group, the Jewelers
Yeah,
Academy Facebook.
somebody will know.
Yeah, yeah. But I know, yeah, etching, I mean, it is beautiful, but I think there's a lot of trial and error with it as well. So I wonder if, etching on gold, this is just my thoughts, like off the top of my head, having not done it, but I wonder if it's a little bit risky because I remember that we used to do lots of sample pieces of the etching because it it doesn't always come up very clear.
I know someone who does etching, a lot of etching. I will ask her when I see her next.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
I will come back to you on that one.
Yeah.
See how you said it, I'm thinking, oh, not heard of that. I will
Mm.
ask her if she's done it.
Yeah, yeah. Curious. Be good to know. Um, Michelle says, I was given some gold and some gold solder. How can I work out what carat they are? There are no markings on them.
Right, need to test. You can get those little tester bottles. I think Walsh's sell them and Cookson sell them. And you put a little dip on and it will tell you 9, 18, etc. Can't just tell by the naked eye. You may be able to.
You may be able to guess roughly, but
Roughly,
won't know
but
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because like
Or
9 carat looks a lot more like silver, doesn't it? It's closer in color to silver.
exactly. Or if you want to, you could take it, make your piece, take it to the assay office, eyeball it, and just say, I'm going to go for 9 carat gold and see what the assay office think because they test it all and they will come back and say to you, it's 14.
Also, I love that you were given some gold. That's great.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought that's nice. Someone should give me some gold.
Yeah.
I'm open to somebody giving me gold. I'm not a fussy person.
We'll take it. Yeah, because you
I will
never know. It
take it.
could be gold filled. I mean, hopefully it is.
Exactly.
Could be gold
To
plated.
check gold fill, just take a little tiny bit off the end and scrape it. But if it's pure gold, you do have to take it. Or if you're in London, you can go to places like Ward's, LSJ, or Bibs, and they will test it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all in Hatton, all in Hatton Garden.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you. Desiree had some questions. She said, is there a heat shield product you can use if you need to either resolder a piece or want to protect other parts of the wire? It goes on, 1 second, it's quite a long question. If you mess up a solder, for example, if it doesn't fuse the pieces together, can you resolder or do you have to pickle before resolder? Oh, that's a different question. So we can talk about pickling with gold. And also, do you need to pickle your piece immediately after soldering? How long? So let's start maybe with pickle because there's a few bits around pickle.
Okay, sorry, I kind of go back to what was that?
So
go back to that first question.
Do you need to pickle straight away? And if you're doing multiple solder joints in one piece, do you need to pickle with gold? I'm guessing it's with gold.
Yeah, pickle all the time. You're able to see if you pickle a piece, so you've soldered your piece. What some people are kind of sticklers and they say you should let it go cold and do not quench it in water. Some people quench it in water. I do either or. It depends how I'm feeling and how quick everything's got to be, and I've not noticed any difference. So either quench it or leave it to go cold. Pickle your piece, because if you don't pickle your piece, it's got all sorts of gunk and things going on there. You can't see what you're doing. You don't see what's clean, what's not. So pickle your piece, make sure it's clean, and then you can look and see what's going on with your piece.
Yes, but you can wait before you pickle if you want to. Like if you've just soldered something and then you're going out and for whatever.
Yes, put it on a steel block. Just let it go cold. That's absolutely fine, because that's what I was saying. Some people are of the idea you shouldn't pickle, you shouldn't quench your piece at all. You should always leave it on a steel block, let it go completely cold. Some people quench. But like I say, I've done both and I've never noticed any difference. Sometimes I'll leave it on a steel block, depending if I'm going off somewhere. Sometimes I'll quench it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only time I worry about kind of heat, like quenching a piece, is if I want it to be really soft for some reason, because
Yeah.
sometimes you
I
harden it a bit. But yeah, I'm too impatient to wait for some.
Yeah, I don't like today. I was working on two pieces, so I had one that I had on the steel block and one I quenched.
Hmm.
Both worked
Life
fine.
went on, and it
Yeah,
was
both absolutely fine. No problems.
brilliant. So do all the pickling.
Yeah, pickle. I
Um,
always say pickle.
Mm. It's better to, isn't it? Because sometimes you can get away with it, but why risk it? Especially with gold. It's like you want the solder to flow, you want
Yeah,
it to all go really well. Only takes a couple of, especially if your pickle pot's hot and you're working on it. It's only a few minutes and
yes.
it's all
And
fresh.
I like to see what I'm doing. I like to make sure before I move to the second part or the third part, I like to make sure that I soldered everything correctly wherever. You don't want to put it in the magnetic polisher or the polishing barrel and the chain has popped or something just because you didn't pickle it, you didn't check, do that last little check. So it's always good, just clean it up, finish it up, and have a look to make sure everything is doing what it should be doing.
Great question. So the other question
Mm.
was, is there a heat shield product you can use if you need to either resolder or piece, or you want to protect other parts of the wire? So I think this is if you're doing like lots of solder joins, how can you protect the initial solder joints? And there's lots of things you can use for this, but I'd be interested, Barbara.
I always use either yellow ochre or if I'm feeling, if it's a kind of, normally I use yellow ochre actually. I was going to say jeweler's rouge. Jeweler's rouge is really good. It's like a powder. You literally take a little tiny bit off, mix it with a nice little paste, and just put it on the areas that you do not want heat to touch. Yellow jeweler's rouge is really greasy. If you touch it anywhere else, solder won't hit. So you need to be really precise on where you do it. Yellow ochre, it's a water-based paint, does exactly the same thing. You can either get it in the tube or the little pan. Just take a little bit off, get a little bit of a paste, and brush it on where you do not want solder to hit.
Yeah.
And both of them are water soluble. Both of them will wash off when you pickle them and when you just give them a little scrub with the toothbrush and washing up liquid. People use Tipp-Ex, but I personally find that smells a little bit. I like to use the Thermotech paste, but only if I'm doing like something really big and chunky. If I'm doing something that is really I need to do multiple joints like a ring, so I'm doing the shank and then I'm doing the kind of the bezel, and I want to be really precise. I'll use yellow ochre or jeweler's rouge.
Absolutely. So lots of really nice products there.
There are a lot of nice products, yes.
And the Technoflux that Barbara mentioned, we use that actually in the fine diploma. So that's really good. But like Barbara said, it's quite involved and you've got to clean it off. So it's really, if you're doing like quite a lot, like the project we use it for, I think there's like 8 or 9 solder joins, so it's like it's worth it.
Yeah, you could just kind of lump it on and
cover it all up.
Yeah, on one bit. Yeah.
Whereas if you've got one little tiny join and you just want to block it, then something like jeweler's rouge is much more. It's a bit like almost painting on some nail varnish or something.
Yes, it is. And just get yourself a super fine paintbrush. You can just really pinpoint the areas you need to block out.
Yeah, and it's jeweler's rouge is a polishing compound, so you use it.
It is, but it comes in a powder. It's actually in a little white pot, it's about so big, and it's actually a pot of powder. Or just go and get some yellow ochre from the paint shop. You get it in the tube or the pan, do exactly the same thing.
And this is yellow ochre paint.
Yellow ochre watercolored paint.
There we go. Heard it here. Useful, very useful. And
very useful.
All of these it's best to crack a window open. Like they're not necessarily like, terrible, but it's just you are kind of heating something up with a product on it. So it's always best to sort of crack a window if you're
But
doing
I
it.
say whether you're making jewellery, whether you're using yellow ochre, whatever you're doing, whether you're soldering, whether you're fluxing, make sure you have good ventilation.
Yeah,
Ventilation is key.
yeah.
Or if you're worried, put a mask on.
Absolutely. Lovely. We're getting through them. Helen says, I'm currently doing the silver diploma and absolutely loving it. Awesome. Love that, Helen. Apart from the kite project. That's understandable. We fully understand.
That's everybody's nemesis.
That's why we put it there, just why not? I'm super excited about the metal clay part of the course. I've never worked with metal clays and just wondering if you can mix silver and gold metal clays for firing. Oh,
metal clay is something I have never worked with in my life. Someone gave me a little bit of metal clay once. I think it's still in my drawer. That was about a decade ago.
My goodness, Barbara, we need to get you on.
I've never done any. I mushed it and I put it back in the little bag and put it back in the drawer. I think it's still at the back of the drawer.
Barbara is not one of our metal clay mentors. Just
I have no idea. People say metal clay and I kind of go.
I have worked with metal clay though. I've worked with silver and gold. I've never mixed silver and gold clay before, so that's a really interesting question. I don't know that I would. The gold clay, like the actual lump gold clay, is so expensive. It is so much more expensive than gold, that it's very rare that people even ever use it. I think I used it once on a commission and that was it. But there's loads of ways of adding gold to metal clay that are not using the lump clay. Anna Campbell's here as well. Sorry, Anna, I'm going to rope you in to see if you know if you can mix the two clays. Maybe you can join if you've got any thoughts on that, or write it in the chat. But we do have a free course on adding gold to metal clay, which might be worth looking at if you haven't already, Helen. And there's 3 techniques that I teach that course that I cover in there. One of them is actually painting. There's a paste of the clay where you can actually paint gold onto the clay. So that's a way of kind of combining them, which is really interesting. The other one is Kambu, which Barbara's already spoken about, which is using a gold foil, but it's thicker than gold plating. You kind of use heat and pressure to apply a gold foil and create a fusion. And that's a really lovely way to add gold. And the third way that we cover in that course is using a casting grain. So it's not clay, it's like gold, casting grain, and you can embed that into a piece. But also, once you fired metal clay, because it is silver, fine silver, you could then solder gold onto it if you wanted to. So there's quite a few different ways. But yeah, I've never mixed the two clays. I'm sure somebody has. Maybe
sure.
Maybe Anna will have some thoughts. Oh, here we go.
I have answered that.
Put it in the chat.
I've said what you just said, basically. It's too expensive, don't even try. There's lots of much more affordable ways of working with gold and metal clay. I shared the link to the gold course that you just mentioned with metal clay. I don't know if you're talking about doing what's that technique where you mix
I know the
bronze and silver, Mukumegane, yeah,
that's it, yeah.
Which is lovely. I've never seen it done with gold clay though. I don't know whether that's just a cost thing. Last time I looked, 10 grams of silver clay cost £22.95 and 3 grams of gold cost over £300. It's much cheaper to get things gold plated, to make things in metal clay and get them cast. There's lots and lots of much more affordable ways of working with gold.
And I think because of that, not many people have really worked with the gold clay, and therefore nobody really knows what you do with it, because it's just, like Hannah said, you could make the whole piece in solid gold for less than you could kind of combining the two clays. But it's a really interesting kind of topic and question. But yeah, hopefully that has shed some light on it. And thank you, Anna, for answering as well.
There's another question about metal clay, which I've also answered in the chat as well.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. It's always good to have metal clay experts in the house as well. Fab. Okay. So let me just see if there are any more. Oh, here we go. From Liz, do you need separate shot for a barrel polisher?
Separate shot? What do you mean?
You know, in the barrel polisher, the shot, the little steel balls in a tumbler.
Oh, yeah.
Do you need separate?
Oh, for gold and silver? No, because in theory, if your gold is coming off, there's something wrong. So you could just use one magnetic polisher if you're lucky enough to have one of those, or one polishing barrel. Because if gold is flaking or anything's coming off, you need to look at your piece.
Yeah. By that point, it should be
fine. Yeah.
It's not like filing where we're abrasively taking something.
No, it should be fine because it's just work hardening and polishing.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's one less thing we need to buy.
One polishing barrel is fine.
Thanks, Liz. Megan says, when you are going to hammer or texture a 9-carat yellow gold ring, how much smaller should you initially make the ring? So this is you make the ring.
It depends on your size. How much smaller? It's like a bit like how long is a piece of string, because it might be like how heavy is your hand when you go to enamel. When you go to hammer. All of those sorts of things, you've got to, how much did you anneal that ring? So how soft is your metal? How wide is that ring? Is it a really, really thin band? So making it a size smaller and one hammer might do it. So it's one of those things you can't really, it's like when people say to you, how much should I take over when I go to do my rub over? You can't tell people because you've not seen the stone. So it's the same thing. You can't say it's got to be half a size. Rule of thumb, normally it's about half a size, and a size is about 0.5 millimeter.
Yeah. So I guess if you knew you were going to do a really like thick, intense texture, you'd probably make it a little bit smaller because it's going to stretch more. If it's like a gentle texture, probably a little bit less. But yeah, maybe making it in silver first can help to figure out. And then 9-carat gold's a bit harder, so it might make slight difference. But a lot of these differences will be very small, won't they?
Very slight. Rule of thumb, normally it's about a ring size, and the ring, like I say, a ring size is about 0.5 millimeters, 0.5 mil, a bit less. So, and it also depends, how heavy is your hand? Are you one of those people that bash? What sort of texture are you making? All of those sorts of things. You have to think about.
Yeah, it's an art, isn't it? Not it will come.
It's the sort of thing you will look at and you'll think, actually, just a little tap here or a little tap there. It's you get, after a while, you get to look at things and you get to know what's right, what's wrong.
It's like with the wishbone rings that we make in the diploma.
Yes.
It depends how steep the wishbone is, how many sizes you need to adjust. But I find that you get into, it's like when you start making these for people, you start to get a feel for what's exactly right for you. But like Barbara says, about a size is a good place to start with texturing. And the wishbone, it's usually, for me anyway, it's a couple of sizes.
It's a couple of sizes, and it's like the Russian wedding ring. Usually it depends how thick I'm doing the metal, and sometimes it's 7 sizes bigger, sometimes it's 6 sizes bigger. Depends on the thickness of your metal that you're using. And you get to know, you can push it down a little bit, make it a little bit bigger, make it look, all of those sorts of things.
Yes. If only we all had the same size fingers. How easy
just make
jewelers' lives.
Standard is normally size M.
M.
That's a size.
Mother,
M is
or
your
N for November.
M for mother is the average.
Oh, interesting. I'm an N, so I don't know.
I'm
above
actually
or
an
below
M.
average.
Yeah. So I am the average. I'm M. So if you're gonna make rings for your collection, M's are the average.
Oh, nice. And around probably like, yeah, a few around that point. Brilliant. Also, we do have a few fingers, so it will probably fit on at least. Although for engagement rings and wedding rings,
it's one specific finger.
It has to be more specific. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Okay. Just having a look to see if there are any. Some good chat going on.
Someone said, is that M average for ring finger? Yes, that's just the average. So if you're making a range of rings, you're going to do a collection and you think, I'm just going to do a range of rings. Average size for people is an M. So if you do M, 9 times out of 10, it will fit somebody's finger.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Save yourself making 10 different sizes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Megan just added a bit more clarity. It's just a soft texture on a 2mm band. So yeah, I think
2mm, a soft texture, I would then, I'm going to say literally about a size down, which is approximately 0.5mm.
Just a teensy bit.
Teeny weeny. If you're doing a soft, you might even just get away with just hammering it and pushing it down.
Yeah. Kat says, we're getting, I think this might be our last question, but if there's any final burning desires, do put them in now. Kat says, is there a market for fine silver? I can help with this one, Barbara.
Okay.
Fine silver metal clay pieces with gold added, or do people mostly want to purchase sterling? So my thoughts on this are, most people when they're buying jewelry, are not that specific about whether it's fine or sterling. Or it's more about, do they like the design? Do they have the connection with you as the designer? You know, do they like the whole package? So there will be some people who will be a bit more metal aware and sort of say, oh no, I don't want fine, I only want sterling, because sterling is a bit stronger. And so for rings, you know, if you're wearing it every day over years, fine silver will scratch a bit more than sterling. But for most of us, we're not, you know, that's like quite a fine detail. And I think absolutely there's a market for whatever you want to make if you go out there and find people to connect with. But yeah, I think in terms of the marketing stuff, my advice would be to make what you love making and put yourself out there and trust that, you know, you will find people that want it, especially if it's something that you really love, because if you love it, someone else is going to love it as well.
Yeah, guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Lovely. Well, I think that perfectly brings us to the end of our bench tips today. Thank you so much, Barbara, for coming.
That's a pleasure.
Your knowledge and wisdom on all things gold. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining us. It's lovely to see some of you here, your faces and your names, and have all those wonderful questions. And make sure when you make your gold pieces, you come and share them with us in the Facebook groups and things. We love seeing what you guys have made, or on Instagram. We're always around at Jewellers Academy, and we will be back next time for another bench tips. We do these pretty much every month, different topics. Wonderful jewelers such as Barbara come and share their knowledge, and we get your questions answered. So
just want to say one more thing.
Yes,
when people are making hinges, make them in gold. Make your hinge pinned in gold and make your hinge in gold. Sturdier.
Why?
Sturdier. Sterling silver is very soft, and it's a mechanism that's going like that, and that will wear away quickly. But if you do it in gold, so if you're doing sterling silver, do your hinge and your hinge pin in gold, and it makes it just harder wearing.
And is that 9 karat gold or any gold?
9 karat is the hardest.
Okay, so that's going to keep something that's anything kinetic that's going to have a lot of this
Yeah,
going on,
exactly.
we want gold.
Friction,
Awesome.
make it in gold, even
Love
if you're
it.
doing the rest of it.
And you can just say
That's
to your clients, sorry, we have to make it in gold.
You have to make it in
Yes.
gold because you don't want your clients coming back to you unless they want to buy again.
No, absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. And yeah,
That's
thank
right.
you
Bye.
for being here. Yeah, take care. We'll see you in another one soon. Bye for
See
now.
you later, everybody.